Shalom everybody and Chodesh Tov. Today's Rosh Chodesh Shvat. We are continuing with insights in the Parsha of the week. This week's Parsha, Parshat Bo, which goes very into detail into the Korban Pesach, which is technically the first mitzvah of the Jewish people, like as a nation. Even though there's also the Brit Milah circumcision, but that was so they can eat the Korban Pesach. The main highlight is the Korban Pesach that the Jews did together. Even though also Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded for the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh of how to sanctify the new moon, but that was given to him. He was the one who did it. Hashem showed him how to do it. So technically the first mitzvah of the Jewish people together is the Korban Pesach. So because of that, we can say that the Korban Pesach is the beginning mitzvah of the Jewish nation, as a nation. This is our mitzvah, which begins all the other mitzvot of the Torah. It's the beginning point. That's why there's so much emphasis on Pesach and the Korban Pesach. So in the details, let's take a look in the Pasuk. This is chapter 12, verse 11. Beforehand, already Hashem is commanding to Moshe to tell the Jewish people all the details of the Korban Pesach. You can't eat it cooked. It has to be like barbecued on the fire directly. You have to eat it at nighttime, right, with matzot and maromim, with bitter herbs, okay, and you shouldn't leave any leftovers, all these details. Then in verse 11, chapter 12, verse 11, it says like this, Vechacha tochlu oto, and this is the way you should eat the Korban Pesach. Motnechem chagurim, your waist should be belted with a belt as if like you're ready to travel. Na'alechem beraglechem, not with like slippers and taking off your shoes. Have your shoes ready on. Umakelchem be'etchem, and your traveling sticks in your hands as if you're about to go out. V'achaltem oto bechipazon, and you should eat it with haste. Chipazon. Pesach hu Hashem, and like this, like the reason why should you eat it with haste. Pesach hu Hashem. This is a Pesach for God. So we need a lot of explanation on this, and Rashi helps us. Rashi explains, Motnechem chagurim, you should have your belts already tied around your waist. Rashi says, Mezumanim laderech, it's like you're like prepared to leave, because that's what actually happened in the morning, they left. Bechipazon, what does it mean hastily? You should eat it hastily. Lashon behala u'meherut, eat it fast and quickly, like in haste, yeah. Kmo va'id David nechpaz lalecha, and David was very hasty to leave. That's a verse in Samuel 1. Asher shlichu Aram bechovzam, the clothing which Aram left in their haste to flee. That's two examples of chipazon. And here's where we want to get to this Rashi. Pesach hu Lashem. HaKorban hu karoi Pesach. The Korban, the sacrifice itself, is called Pesach. Why? Al shema dilug v'hapsicha. It's called Pesach, which means to skip over, because it's named after the skipping over and the jumping over. What skipping over? What jumping over? Shakadosh Baruch Hu medaleg batei Yisrael mibein batei Mitzrayim. That the Hashem, blessed be He, the Holy One, blessed be He, was skipping over the Jewish peoples, the Jews who were living amongst between houses of Egyptians. V'kofetz mi mitzvi le mitzvi veYisrael emtzai nimlad. And Hashem, as if to say, jumps from Egyptian to Egyptian to smite their firstborn. And the Israelite who's in between them, nimlat. So Hashem had technically, Hashem who sent out the angel of death, skipped from house to house, skipping the houses, skipping the Jews, over the Jews, and jumping to the Egyptians. So then it continues, V'atem, so just like Hashem skipped over, and the Korban is called on the sake of the skipping over, the jumping over. V'atem asu kol avodotav Leshem Shamayim, and you, the Jewish people, do all of the services related to the sacrifice for the sake of heaven. Derech dilug kvitzah, in the same format, in like jumping and hopping format, just like Hashem did. Zecher lishmo shekarui Pesach, in memory, to inaugurate its memory of the name of the sacrifice, which is called Pesach. And he brings like in Old French, Vigam pasku. Lashon psia, what they say in French, Pascal, means psia, to jump from place to place. Okay? There's something here people don't even notice. People don't even pay attention. He says, Rashi, that you should do the mitzvah, the Korban Pesach, in the format of hopping and jumping around. This is the idea of dancing. Dancing and jumping around. The mitzvah of doing this Korban with simcha is hinted to in the dilug and kvitzah. And it's powerful because Rebbe Nachman teaches in many places that the power of dancing is to mitigate harsh judgments. In order for Hashem to skip over you and protect you from evil, you also have to skip and dance. That's one of the main ideas Rebbe Nachman gives of dancing, is that it mitigates harsh judgments. Just like you're jumping and hopping, so too the judgment should be skipped over you. You're hopping as if to say it's hopping over you, any judgment and difficulty. And it's hinted to in this mitzvah, which is the first mitzvah. The first mitzvah of the Jewish people that they're given, right? The two mitzvah together, they're all connected. The circumcision, which was on the same night, which is right before Pesach, right before Shkia. On the 14th of Nisan, the Jews did circumcision, and they went into the 15th already, circumcised, and then with that they were able to eat the Korban Pesach in Egypt. Okay, many miracles happened. The Targum says something unbelievable. The Targum says that night that the Jews ate the Korban Pesach, Hashem transported them to Jerusalem from Egypt. The Jews were transported to the place of the future Beit HaMikdash, the future temple, so they can eat the Korban Pesach in the actual parameters and boundaries of the Beit HaMikdash. And then they were sent back to Egypt. It's hinted to in the verse, Va'isaytchem al kanfei nesharim. Hashem says, and I carried you like on the wings of an eagle, transporting them for that night from Egypt to the Holy Land, to Yerushalayim, all the Jews, in the place of the Beit HaMikdash, so they can eat the Korban Pesach technically in Yerushalayim. Is that amazing? Fine. So we have this mitzvah where it's hinted to dance and jump around. Because really, Rebbe Nachman says, you should do mitzvot with joy. You should do mitzvot with movement and momentum and clapping your hands. Rebbe Nachman was very much supportive of Hasidim, of his followers, davening with hand clapping and movement and happiness, because that connotes all types of simcha. He was very against people who are like davening quiet, and when someone tries to make some noise, they say shah, shah, shah. He was very against that. He said he wanted to reinstitute what was lost from the Baal Shem Tov's time of people davening with noise and hand clapping and singing, and he held that was the way of the Baal Shem Tov that has to be reinstated. And it's a shame that today people don't daven like that, and the few who do are mocked of. But really, ideally, a Jew should daven and do all his mitzvot with movement and jumping and dancing. There were Breslov Hasidim of the last generation, of Nachman Borstein, of blessed memory. He once told me that he saw how one Breslover would take about 5 minutes to say the blessing over the talit. On a regular weekday morning before davening shacharis, he would take 5 minutes to say the bracha, wrap himself in the talit, and would be dancing under the talit for within 5 minutes, expressing his joy in doing this beautiful mitzvah. So this mitzvah is designated from the Torah, the Korban Pesach. It's given the name Pesach because of the kvitzah, because Hashem skipped over. So now, Rebbe Nachman in Likutey Moharan lesson 24 also refers to this mitzvah, saying that this mitzvah is the classic example for all mitzvot, that when a Jew does a mitzvah, specifically, especially, with joy, that mitzvah has power to activate motion, movement, and spiritual arousal to all the levels. This is hinted to in what Moshe Rabbeinu told Paro, and it's also in this week's parsha. Binarenu biskenenu nelech bitzanenu uvkarenu nelech ki chag Hashem lanu. He asked Paro by the Makav Arbe, who's going? I'll let you go to sacrifice. You want to sacrifice the Korban Pesach in the desert, 3 days? No problem. Mi va mi haolchim. Who's going? So Moshe said, we're all going. Binarenu viskanenu, with our youth and with the elders, nelech, we will go. Bitzanenu vkarenu, with our sheep and our cattle. with our sons and daughters, nelech, we will go, ki chag Hashem lanu, because it's a chag. So because it's a festival, we need to bring even the children. And also we don't know how many animals to bring, so we have to bring all of our cattle. And also the elder and the youth, they also have to come. Everybody has to come. So Rebbe Nachman shows from this verse that the power of a mitzvah is to wake up all the levels. The concept of young and old, sheep and cattle, and sons and daughters, these 2, 4, 6 levels, the Arizal shows that they refer to all 10 levels of energy in the creation, all the 10 sfirot, and everything constituted to be part of the universe is hinted to in these 6 categories of young and old, cattle and sheep, and sons and daughters. They contain all levels. And Rebbe Nachman points out that the verse says, "B'narenu v'zkenenu nelech," we will go. In other words, the mitzvah of the Pesach, done with joy, will cause momentum and movement to all these levels. So to the young and the old, they'll move. There'll be momentum to come back to Hashem, and also the cattle, the animal levels. People fallen into levels of animalistic desires, so they're like sheep and cows. They will also have momentum to move, and also people who are very immature and not developed, like children, sons and daughters, they're also nelech. That's why it says again the word nelech. So he shows that this applies not just to the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, but to all the mitzvah of the Torah. And why is it designated by this mitzvah? Because, like we said in the beginning, this is the opening mitzvah for all the mitzvot of the Torah, is the Korban Pesach. Okay? It's associated with the month of Nisan, Chodesh Hazeh Lachem. Like Rashi says, the Torah should have began with the first mitzvah of the Torah, which is Rosh Chodesh. Again, the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh was taught directly to Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's it. Afterwards, he taught it to the sages, etc. But the first mitzvah that the Jewish people did as a whole is the Korban Pesach, along with the circumcision that they did right before him. And this shows for all the other mitzvot that by doing them, besimcha, with joy, which the idea represented in the kvitzah and the jumping that Rashi points out, that's how you do the mitzvah. This applies with all the mitzvot. All mitzvot ideally should be done with joy and happiness. There was a story with Rav Levi Tzak of Berditchev that in the time of Rav Levi Tzak of Berditchev, there was a shamash, there was a gabbai, someone who took care of the shul. He would prepare before Shabbos the candles and everything, and the tablecloths, and clean the shul and get it ready for Shabbat. And this shamash was so excited in preparing the candles in the shul, which are technically candles of a mitzvah because it's in order to daven, and it's all types of candles that they light in the shul. And once, while lighting the candles, he got so carried away in his excitement, he was dancing with his eyes closed, and without paying attention, the fire from the candles got a hold of his jacket. His jacket set on fire, and it burnt him totally, and he died. So in heaven, there was a dispute. Is he considered to be punished as someone who committed suicide? Or no, he's considered someone who was doing for the sake of heaven the mitzvah, just that he didn't pay attention. He was over happy in order to do this mitzvah, and got carried away, and he got burnt. So there was a big diyun in heaven, and there was a tzaddik who passed on already. His name was Rebbe Lieber of Berditchev. He was the first official rabbi of the city of Berditchev when it opened up. There's many stories told about this Rebbe Lieber. He came to Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev in his dream, and he said, "Listen, I'm telling you what's happening in heaven now with this poor shamus who was burnt alive. And in heaven, there's now a debate how to judge him. Is he judged favorably or unfavorably? I can help tip the scale for the favor, but I need your help, you, Rav Levi Tzak of Berditchev. What I need your help? I need you to go next to my grave, and your students should dig a ditch next to my kever, fill it with water, and you should immerse in it. The power of you immersing in that mikveh, that temporary mikveh, next to my grave, together we can tip the scale to help the shamash to enter heaven as meritorious and not as someone who committed suicide." And he hinted that the whole deal in heaven was something very serious, because it had repercussions for many other cases like that throughout history, that people who were doing something sincere and honest out of joy sorry, and died because of it, to tip the scale to be should be meritorious, B'ezrat Hashem, this case would help for many other cases in heaven. So Rav Levi Yitzchak with his students set out. They dug a ditch next to the kever of Reb Lieber. This Reb Lieber, by the way, if you have a chance ever to go to Berditchev, his grave, unfortunately, is in the middle of a local park. There's a local park in Berditchev, and in the middle, caged around, is his grave. And that's it. Like they turned this big the cemetery into a park, unfortunately. So they went to his grave. They dug and they had water come in. They made it in a way that it's a kosher mikveh for the sake of the Rav Levi Yitzchak. And as soon as he stepped into the mikveh, the Berditchever, the walls of earth collapsed. So they shouldn't be in the mikveh. It should be full of mud. So his students had to dig out again the mud with the water, pour in more water, and he went in again, and again the walls collapsed. And he saw this happening once, twice, 3 times. So he understood that there's a major prosecution in heaven of not allowing this shamash to pass away in a merit. There's a major kitrug, prosecution, that they shouldn't tip for the scale of merit to help him to pass successfully. So Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev said, okay, to his students, I will be already inside while you're digging out the ditch again another time. I will be in, and so quickly there'll be no time for the prosecution, whatever, to make the walls fall. Quickly put in the water and already dunk in. So that time it worked. And then Reb Lieber came to the Berditchev telling him it worked in heaven, and Baruch Hashem, he made it. To show you the power, how important it is to do a mitzvah with joy, even if it has unfortunate negative consequences. But still, the point is that when a Jew does a mitzvah with joy, he's protected. And the Torah, this week's Parsha, tells us derech kvitzah v'dilug. You should do the mitzvah, the Korban Pesach, while jumping and being happy. Jumping around. Don't be dead and stagnant. Be happy in doing that mitzvah. And Rebbe Nachman shows that this mitzvah applies to all the mitzvot in doing them with simcha and joy. And yes, momentum and movement are an indicator of joy. Shabbat shalom and have an amazing week.